I will invite now Dr. Edmund Affenbeck, consultant of the Department for Science and Law of PeTA Germany.
Yes.
I'd like to thank the organisers very much indeed for inviting me today. I'm Dr. Edmund Haferbeck from PeTA in Germany. I'd like to thank Stefan Eck very much indeed. He's an old friend of mine. The idea behind this event is something that really highly topical. I don't know whether you've heard in the last few days about the climate conference, the COP21 in Paris, where people are saying that what's going to happen is really important for climate policy. But from what I've seen, there's hardly anything in the mass media about farming as being related to the climate. Nearly every report has just completely ignored this topic. That is what has happened, and I'm very pleased that the previous speakers have said that this is a huge scandal. From this event here, we need to be able to leave this event and know that in Paris they are actually ignoring one of the major sources of climate change. That is something that has to be on the agenda. So I'm very pleased that today, hopefully, we are making a move in that direction. You were talking about the Pope earlier and his sentence about not treating animals badly. I think he should be Man of the Year 2015 because of that. That is something that PETA and other organizations would support, what the Pope said in his Laudato Si. What we have seen in this area is a potential apocalypse. And we can see that there are 20 billion livestock animals in the world, 7 billion people. Almost 40% of the cereals produced are used to feed livestock, and then people are dying of hunger. 90% of protein, 99% of carbohydrates are actually lost out of the food chain because all those cereals going to livestock animals. Processing food and improving it, that is one of the biggest lies in the world because it just means that a lot of food is being lost for people on the planet. Some people, on average, can eat 1,000 animals in their lifetime, and that is a huge number. If you look at the slide, you can see the figures there. In the world, there are 55 billion animals which are slaughtered every year. It's almost impossible to say it out loud. In Germany, we're talking about 8 billion. These animals which are missing are something that the Green Shepherd organization looks into, because there are another 200 billion on top of those. So every year we are losing 300 billion animals from the Earth's surface, and that means that an apocalypse is happening. If we look at pig farming, the facilities that are used there, we know how bad pigs pollute the environment. In 1987, a butcher actually said in Bavaria that there shouldn't be any more pig farming. We were already at the limit then, in 1987, but still about 60 kilos is consumed per head per year in Germany, and there's still very high figures in America as well. Dairy products, we're talking about 120 kilos a year. Organic production is really peanuts compared to that. It's 1 to 2%. What do we need then? To produce a kilo of beef, of pork, you need 60 kilos of high-value cereals, and this is something that affects the planet as a whole. Here we can see all the calories that are being wasted. There is such enormous waste going on. We are importing valuable cereals, soy, tapioca, cereals from the so-called third world, which then is put in animals' troughs, and then we export that meat, which we don't want to eat. We export it back to those third countries. Just think about that cycle. Think about all of the transport emissions. It is a disaster. Think about all of the flights that have to take place because of that. And we know of all the emissions that are produced there.
or the water for beef production, you can see how many litres per kilo of beef are used. That's a huge amount of waste. Now in this list, I just wanted to show you just one column of this. This is the first column here. If you look at this carefully, the highest amount of CO2 equivalent in terms of greenhouse gases here comes from butter. Butter. That includes milk, a lot of processing, everything else. Butter is one of the most harmful products to the planet because of milk. It's followed by beef and then cheese. And on the right hand, you can see the very low CO2 equivalents from these vegetable-based foods. And we have overnutrition in the industrialized world, where people have eaten themselves ill. In terms of health costs linked to obesity, 17 billion euros is what it costs us in Germany. It's absolutely schizophrenic what we're doing here. Water, we've already talked about, the amounts involved. We've only got 30 centimeters of soil on the earth. That's how much soil we have. And that soil is being systematically eroded and polluted with pesticides and so on. All of that just for animal production, and land use is just as high. We're almost up to the top. 7.2 billion people, and soil loss is enormous because of this processing industry. That's come from the German industry here. German hunger aid has not talked about the soil issues here, and worldwide hunger is one of the main causes here. It's very much linked to animal production. Looking at rainforests, soya and so on is being produced, and that all leads to impoverished soil. And those are all the products that we use in Germany in the industrialized world. That's what we're destroying the rainforest for, just for that. And it's the same for animal feed. 90% of soya in the world goes to livestock farming. And then there's the climate issue. Livestock production is something that we have to be very clear about. We have to say that all scientists, not necessarily animal welfare organizations, but scientists have published thousands of pages of studies and so on, saying that livestock production is the most harmful to the climate of all. We will be looking at the film in a moment, and there you will see that environment associations in America haven't recognized the issue of nutrition. They've left it out of the whole thing. I'd like to talk about the environmental organizations in Germany and in Europe. Until 7 years ago or so, these organizations, showing you an example here of the WWF, a big international industry-oriented animal protection organization. Until about 7 years ago, that kind of organization, the OMD for example, they started to understand that livestock production is the biggest environmental problem following us, and they came out with very good studies. They look at the fact that big predators are at the top of the pyramid, that we're at the top of the pyramid, we're the big eaters. And this is something where animal protection organisations haven't always been involved in the favour of animals. They are more altruistic. They think about the world as a system. They think globally. Animal rights organisations have been dealing with this for 3 decades, and they've been looking at the link between livestock production, nutrition and climate issues, as well as water and soil erosion. This is Alexanderplatz in Berlin. 4,000 mineral water bottles have been displayed there just to show how much you need to produce one steak which remains on your plate for 10 minutes until you've eaten it. So this is a climate killer. Livestock production is the number one here, and this is to do with the link to environment issues. And this is something that we need to be very clear about. The cleverest man of all time, Albert Einstein, didn't just look at relativity, he looked at nutrition. And he did that 70 years ago. And Einstein says nothing will secure human existence as becoming vegetarian. Now we're not talking about vegetarian now, we're talking about becoming vegan. That wasn't on the agenda 70 years ago. And these are the last 3 terms. Animal production kills animals. Animal production kills people. Animal production kills our blue planet.
Blue planet. And everybody knows it. Thank you for your listening.